On this Tuesday night, an entire family all but gone in a Nova Scotia house fire.
There's something out of a horror movie that you just never wish on anybody.
7 children killed, that fire sudden and ferocious. The family, Syrian refugees who'd fled Canada to find safety.
I made myself available to Cabinet if they wanted to hear from me.
The former Attorney General breaks her silence behind closed doors. So what will she say publicly? Why even some top Liberals want Jody Wilson-Raybould to speak out. And in depth on the Russia probe.
The most logical explanation is that the Russians have something on Trump.
With all the twists and turns, meetings, leaks, indictments, what you really need to know to make sense of the Mueller investigation. This is The National.
It burned fast in the middle of the night, and it was deadly. An entire generation of a family gone, killed in a raging house fire, one of the worst Nova Scotia has ever seen. Canada was supposed to be a new beginning for the Barhos. They fled the horror of Syria, but it found them here this morning when fire consumed their house and took the lives of all 7 children. Ahmed was the oldest at 14, Abdullah the youngest, born just 3 months ago. Their siblings, 12-year-old Rola, 9-year-old Mohammed, Ola, 8, 3-year-old Hala, and Rana, who was 2. The family was new to Canada and newer to Halifax. They moved there from a smaller community in the summer, and they were about to move back next week. As Brett Ruskin tells us, it is an unthinkable tragedy for a family who had already been through so much.
They arrived in Canada just over a year ago in search of a better life for their family, a fresh start after fleeing a brutal conflict. That hope ended in tragedy early this morning. This is all that remains of the Barho family home.
I heard a huge bang and I was laying in bed with my daughter, and followed by a woman screaming. So I jumped up out of bed and looked out the back window, and all I could see was flames shooting out from the back door going onto their deck.
By the time firefighters arrived around 12:40 a.m., there was intense flames on the first and second stories. The roof gone, neighboring homes charred. No word yet on whether there were working smoke detectors in the home. The family was sponsored by a local refugee support organization. Natalie Horn was part of that effort and remained a close friend of the family.
It was honestly such an enriching experience for everyone, and it was amazing to be able to share, especially with the children, so many firsts, their first snow, their first time skating.
Their mother, Kauthar, escaped with non-life-threatening injuries. Horn says she's inconsolable.
She's finding it difficult to accept what has happened, and she just repeats the name of her children over and over again and asks to see them.
Her husband, the child's father, Ibrahim, was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Family friend Abdullah Hussein says he had to break the news to family back in Syria and Turkey.
I called the wife's brothers. We wanted them to start the process of burying the kids.
The family used to attend Imam Ibrahim al-Shanti's mosque. He remembers the kids well and reflected today on their loss.
They are starting their life down here, and they have all kinds of hopes, but life didn't give much, apparently, for them.
Investigators are still processing this scene, and they'll be back here in the morning to keep combing through the home. Meanwhile, much like the support that first brought this refugee family here to Canada, the community has now launched a fundraising campaign to help support the parents who traveled so far and lost so much. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
Among those reacting to the tragedy today, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, tweeting, "Words fail when children are taken from us too soon, especially in circumstances like this. My heart goes out to the survivors of the horrible fire in Halifax this morning and the loved ones who are mourning this tremendous loss."
Beyond devastating. Okay, Ian, let's turn now to the story that is still overtaking Ottawa today, the SNC-Lavalin controversy. And today we are hearing from Jody Wilson-Raybould, the former Attorney General, at the center of this. It's been 1 week since she stepped down from the Liberal front bench, and just 1 day since the resignation of Gerald Butts, Justin Trudeau's principal secretary and one of his closest confidants, over these allegations that his office tried to intervene in a criminal case against the Quebec engineering giant. But today, all eyes were on Wilson-Raybould. In a surprise move, she broke her silence to her former cabinet colleagues. Katie Simpson was covering that meeting and the moment that stunned Parliament Hill.
Anxious political aides waited more than 90 minutes outside the cabinet office, wondering why today's meeting was running so behind. Then, this. In a shocking move, Jody Wilson-Raybould asked to and was allowed to address her former colleagues despite her contentious exit from cabinet.
Were you pressured by the Prime Minister's office?
Still working with my lawyer.
It's not clear what was said behind closed doors, but she won't be returning to cabinet, even if she's sticking with the Liberal team.
Do you plan to stay in caucus, Ms. Wilson-Raybould?
I am a Liberal member of Parliament, thank you.
Wilson-Raybould must now prepare to publicly share her side of the story. The Justice Committee voted to invite the former Attorney General to testify, a change in tune for the Liberals.
We want to hear from Ms. Jody Wilson-Raybould, and that is exactly what we've set in motion today.
The opposition still worries Wilson-Raybould will not be able to speak freely.
We have no knowledge of whether Madam Wilson-Raybould, given this nonsense about solicitor-client privilege being relevant, will be able to testify about things, or will she simply say 15 times in a row, I can't answer because of solicitor-client privilege.
That's because, as Attorney General, Wilson-Raybould was the government's top lawyer. The Prime Minister has not said whether he will waive privilege on this issue.
It's obviously a matter we have to consider very carefully.
Wilson-Raybould's return to the House and her seat on the Liberal front bench overshadowed the equally shocking resignation of the Prime Minister's closest advisor yesterday.
It's obviously a sad moment.
Jerry Butts left the Prime Minister's office even though he says he's done nothing wrong. His friends hope now he can be free to speak his mind.
My sense is that he's decided, and I think appropriately, to defend himself against people saying things that just aren't true.
The Liberals may like Jerry Butts being able to speak for himself, but they don't support calling him to the Justice Committee. The Liberals have ruled out bringing him forward as a witness, at least for now. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Late this afternoon, Jody Wilson-Raybould confirmed she will testify before the Justice Committee, speaking exclusively to CBC producer Chris Rands and his team as she walked back to her office. Here's their conversation for the record.
On the Commons Justice Committee, Ms. Khaled is going to have you appear, I believe, or she's asking to have you appear. Where are we at with that, please?
Well, I haven't received that. As I understand it, that's transpired in the last little while. As I said earlier, I am continuing to discuss and talk with my counsel about what I can and cannot say. That too would apply at the Justice Committee if I were to appear. But of course I respect the Justice Committee and would be, I will appear. But as I said, I'm still in discussions with my counsel about the various privileges and confidences that I have.
I'm wondering, ma'am, everyone's asking everyone who works in the Hill, what do we make of all this? What's your message to regular Canadians? Because they've all been reading about this in the papers, watching our coverage, listening to our coverage. What are they to make of it at this point?
I'm really not at liberty to talk about that, but I will say that I'm incredibly proud to be the Member of Parliament for Vancouver-Granville. I continue to have the commitment to serve my constituents, and I'm doing just that.
And will you stay in caucus after tomorrow's caucus meeting?
I was elected as a Liberal Member of Parliament by the constituents of Vancouver-Granville, and I will continue to serve them as such.
That's former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould speaking to us after question period. It's been another dramatic 24 hours here in Ottawa. Let's bring in David Cochrane. David, what has changed today?
Well, Rosie, really two new things happened today. The first is that the cabinet now has a better understanding of Jody Wilson-Raybould's version of events, though nobody is telling us anything publicly because of cabinet confidentiality. And the second is we have confirmation that Jody Wilson-Raybould will speak publicly, that she will testify at the House of Commons Justice Committee. Now, we still don't know what she will say, but believe it or not, this is something a lot of top Liberals in this town want to happen, because up to this point, they've had to defend themselves against anonymously sourced allegations published in the Globe and Mail, which is like punching fog, and they say they want something more solid here, a firm version of events from Jody Wilson-Raybould that they can start pushing back against and defending themselves on.
Okay, David, tomorrow is caucus day. How might that unfold?
Yeah, a lot of MPs we've been speaking with, they're eager to hear her version of events, but they also want to hear a plan from the Prime Minister on how to move forward. There's been a lot of complaints about how this has been handled from a communications and an issues management perspective. You have a large caucus with a lot of rookie MPs, and this is an election year. So MPs we spoke with say they want to hear a message of unity from the Prime Minister, because it looks like there's a civil war going on in the Liberal Party, and they want a plan to move forward. The last time they heard from the Prime Minister, it was on a listen-only conference call the night Jody Wilson-Raybould quit. At that time, he told them everything was fine. Since then, Jerry Butts has quit, and they've fallen behind the Conservatives in a recent poll. That's the opposite of fine, Rosie.
Okay, there'll be lots of questions for him tomorrow. Thanks, David. That's the CBC's David Cochrane in Ottawa tonight. Meanwhile, the opposition is keeping up the pressure, and calls are growing louder from both the Conservatives and the NDP for a full public inquiry into the SNC-Lavalin affair.
Doing so would allow the former Attorney General to speak, to tell Canadians her side of the story. But the Prime Minister has kept her silent in order to protect himself.
The corrosive nature of this scandal is eating away right into the office of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister must come clean with Canadians today.
MPs will vote tomorrow on whether to have that public inquiry. There are already, though, 2 investigations underway. The Federal Ethics Commissioner has launched an inquiry, and as we mentioned, of course, the House of Commons Justice Committee also looking into the matter. And if the Prime Minister didn't have enough on his plate, there was another headache for the Liberals today. This scene outside the House. After 5 days on the road, the pro-pipeline United We Roll convoy did what it set out to do, rally on Parliament Hill, and they are vowing to return tomorrow. But while the convoy's main message is supposed to be about getting pipelines built, there's also been some concerning anti-immigration rhetoric. Salima Shivji now on how the convoy was received.
They made their way to Ottawa, some traveling thousands of kilometers with a message.
We want to tell the world what's happening with our oil prices. We need a pipeline, we need jobs.
And took it to Parliament Hill.
I watch people leaving every day because they're bankrupt, they've lost their job. There's a whole lot of sadness.
The protest is no longer officially associated with the so-called Yellow Vest movement, but not everyone got the message. Some here want to talk about the government's immigration policies too.
I want a secure border like 88% of people, and I'm a racist?
Our next guest. Others involved, like today's MC, have posted inflammatory comments about immigrants on social media in the past, all of which complicates the response from politicians inside.
To let your voices be heard.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer took the opportunity to blast the Liberals for not doing enough for oil workers.
It is time that Canada has a Prime Minister that is proud of our energy sector.
Maxime Bernier of the newly formed People's Party of Canada also stopped by. But for the Liberals, the convoy's mixed messages are another challenge. That's why a source confirms the Prime Minister's office stepped in quietly to discourage organizers of a second convoy headed for Ottawa. It was cancelled. This one wasn't.
It's very unfortunate that the message has drifted away from pipelines to issues that are not relevant to the discussion on pipelines. But we will continue to focus on the real issues that matter to Albertans.
The government is also hoping a report from the National Energy Board later this week will bolster their argument they're doing all they can for the oil sector. That report could untangle the delays hitting the stalled Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, from politics here to a different type of political upheaval, this time in Haiti, Adrian.
Yeah, Rosie, there is apparently a bit of an odd calm in that country today, as if everyone is sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. We have seen the angry protesters burning tires and demanding the resignation of their president. It's a campaign against government corruption that really began on social media with a single photograph posted by a Montreal man. As Paul Hunter tells us, Gilbert Mirambeau had no idea his picture would have this kind of impact on the country.
Want to know why Haitians are so angry at their government? Check this half-built overpass. Under construction for 4 years, this is all there is. $3.5 million later. This theater, renovated also with public money, rarely open. And this half-built, publicly funded shopping center has been half-built for years, while vendors sell food on the sidewalk. From the overpass and beyond, it's estimated many hundreds of millions of dollars have been misspent by a government accused of rampant corruption. It so enraged Gilbert Mirambeau and fellow activist Pascal Solage that Mirambeau, who splits his time between Port-au-Prince and Montreal, took a tiny step that ignited a potential revolution.
This is a moment we as Haitian, we have to take matter into our own hands and change our country.
Last summer, Mirambeau tweeted an image of himself with a homemade sign and a simple message: "Where's the money?"
I guess that picture triggered something.
It sure did. In a population now connected by social media, the photo and that message caught fire, and before you knew it, demonstrations raged in the capital, not just last week, but for months.
De milliers et de milliers de personnes qui étaient indifférentes.
It has awakened thousands and thousands of people, she says.
Were you out on the streets?
Mirambeau took us for a walk down to where a Senate commission recently officially accused Haiti's government of corruption.
This is saying we asked for a trial. Where's the money?
And though the demonstrations have lately paused, Mirambeau underlines the fury is growing.
And I know this is a moment. It's really a moment. You can feel it. It's palpable.
Will it be enough, says Mirambeau? It has to be. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Port-au-Prince.
So curiously, because of the relative calm, the Canadian Embassy in Port-au-Prince was open all day today, but Global Affairs is still recommending Canadians avoid all travel to Haiti for now.
We're following several other developing stories tonight, starting with that candlelight vigil for a little girl murdered earlier this week in Ontario. Hundreds gathered in her hometown of Brampton, just outside of Toronto. Ria Rajkumar's body was found in her father's home after an Amber Alert. Her mother called police after she and her father failed to return home after the girl's birthday.
Everyone is here. We came as a community, everyone from, doesn't matter from which religion, so everyone is here to offer their condolences to the family.
Ria's father has been charged with first-degree murder. And a verdict tonight in a high-profile trial in Toronto for the man who opened fire in a crowded food court in Eaton Centre 7 years ago. Christopher Husbands has been found guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter and 5 counts of aggravated assault. 2 men were killed and several others were injured, including a little boy.
Ahead tonight on The National, what we know about the Mueller-Russia investigation. From the key players to the key revelations, Keith Bogue pieces it all together for us.
And a little later, he said sweatpants are a sign of defeat. I mostly agree. Remembering Karl Lagerfeld, we look at the mark he left on the fashion world.
First, though, as the Pope prepares for a historic summit on sexual abuse in the priesthood, you'll meet an Indigenous woman preparing to take her painful story to the Vatican.
The more of an audience I have with the world, the more pressure it will put on the Vatican to act.
Yorkville in January. The Flower children, and for that matter most other residents, are inside or in Florida.
The hippies may not be able to afford the Gulf Stream, but many scooted off to warmer climates, preferably the West Coast, when the cold winds began to blow last fall. And wittingly or not, business seems to be combining with the weather to keep the hippies away. New developments like York Square, a quadrangle of boutiques and restaurants at the corner of Yorkville and Avenue Road, are changing the once scruffy corner into an elegant shopping spot. Down the street, a new parking garage, not so elegant but useful, will accommodate some of the hundreds of visitors who come to browse and buy. But the big change will come if developer Henry Jordan can persuade the city to let him build a 21-story apartment hotel on the southeast corner of Yorkville. If he gets the go-ahead, and he's supported by a number of businessmen's organizations in the area, he will, he has said, drive the remaining hippies out of Yorkville.
But the effect would be that the population of these young people would be considerably reduced because of the place where they congregate now would no longer be available to them.
So many hippies have already left Yorkville for the Bloor and Spadina area centering around Rochdale College and the Markham Village district that the Jewish Family and Child Service, which had a trailer office in Yorkville, has closed it down. There just weren't enough hippies to keep busy. Judy Johnson, a social worker with the agency, was asked if the Bloor-Spadina area may become the new hippie center.
This is possible. At this point, we're not really sure what's happening in Yorkville. We felt that there was some kind of a change, but we're not certain whether or not they're going to move to another area.
Women have gathered in Rome ahead of the Vatican's historic sexual abuse conference. Some survivors sharing their thoughts today.
Now, when your value depends on your virginity, your obedience, your readiness to suffer and to serve, would you dare to speak out when you are sexually abused? No, because you are feeling ashamed.
Starting Thursday, bishops will try to tackle rampant sexual abuse within the Roman Catholic Church, an issue Pope Francis addressed with surprising candor earlier this month when he admitted nuns had been systematically assaulted by priests around the world. Among those now in Rome, an Indigenous woman and residential school survivor from Canada. Like so many others, Evelyn Korkmaz wants to see change within the church, and she also wants something simpler. As she told the CBC's Jorge Barrera before leaving for Italy, she's seeking an apology.
On this part of her journey, Evelyn Korkmaz is carrying far more than luggage.
I'm going to be representing the spirit of my ancestors that were abused, and all the Indigenous people of Canada that were done wrong. So to me, it's a big burden to carry this.
Her journey began here at St. Anne's Indian Residential School, where she said her childhood ended at age 10.
I was gang raped for the 4 years that I was there by the boys in my community that were sexually abused by the bishops, the nuns, the priests. So in turn, they carried on the abuse and inflicted that on me.
Sitting along the shores of Ontario's James Bay coast, the Catholic Church-run St. Anne's became notorious for the widespread sexual and physical abuse inflicted on the children. It was investigated by the Ontario Provincial Police in the 1990s. 5 people were convicted, including 2 nuns.
I used to dance, skip, play hopscotch, but they tore that away from me.
Despite a motion passed in the House of Commons last spring, the Pope has not apologized for residential schools.
He has apologized to other countries, like Chile, so why not Canada?
And that's why she is going to Rome. Evelyn is a member of Ending Clergy Abuse, a group with representatives from around the world. She knows exactly what she'll tell the Pope if she is chosen to meet him in person.
You're not handling this epidemic of abuse properly. You need to take control. You need to take accountability.
But even if that doesn't happen, the trip will have been worth it. She's been chosen to speak to the international media at a pre-summit press conference.
I think the more of an audience I have with the world, the more pressure it will put on the Vatican to act.
Evelyn said she will carry the scars from St. Anne's to the end.
So it doesn't go away. You can't bury it. I will take it to my grave.
But Evelyn hopes her voice will ease the journeys for those who come after her.
We must stand up and stand up for our children, for the future generation.
Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Ottawa.
Up next on The National, the Mueller investigation. Keith Bogue pieces together what we know about allegations Russia interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. The story the evidence tells.
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
Isn't he behaving like a guilty person?
In that case, yes, I think that's exactly how the president is acting.
To understand what the Assembly of First Nations is, the first thing you need to know is that it is not a government. The AFN is an advocacy organization for First Nations peoples. It's the largest one in Canada, representing more than 900,000 people from 635 communities. It does not represent Inuit or Métis people who have their own organizations.
Organized resistance at a national...
The AFN was established in 1982. It grew out of the National Indian Brotherhood, which was the main advocacy organization at the time. The Indian Brotherhood lobbied against policy changes like the 1969 White Paper, but there were concerns that the Indian Brotherhood, based on regional representation, didn't speak for individual First Nations. So the AFN was formed to make sure that each First Nation had a voice. The AFN's purpose is to advocate on behalf of First Nations people in dealings with the government and the public and private sectors. Land, health, education, natural resources, and housing continue to be top priorities for the AFN. It coordinates discussions and provides analysis on legislation and policy, and it lobbies for action on national issues like the legacy of residential schools and the rates of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Its role can be challenging because not all First Nations share the same priorities. But as an organization that's mostly federally funded, it's viewed by the government as the primary point of contact on national First Nations issues. The leader of the AFN is the National Chief. The National Chief is part of an executive committee with 10 regional representatives and the chairperson for the Elders Council. Along with the Elders Council, the Youth and Women's Council raised community concerns to the AFN. The National Chief is elected by a voting member from each of the 635 First Nations. Each First Nations chief or their proxy gets one vote. This process means that despite the population of individual First Nations, they all carry the same weight in an election. In order to win the 3-year term, the National Chief needs to win 60% of the vote. While the AFN continues to advocate for Indigenous peoples, it has faced criticism by some First Nations, particularly in its dealings with the federal government. Despite that criticism, the AFN remains the largest voice for First Nations peoples across Canada.
I want to say to you, all of you chiefs assembled here, we are the change.
No one has jurisdiction over my children and my grandchildren and my family except me and my brother and my sister. And that is how nationhood begins, by taking responsibility for ourselves and for our future.
And we always will find processes that unite rather than divide our people. That's the job. And when we look forward, we're an advocacy organization, no question. We're not a government.
We need a national chief who can negotiate with Trudeau and the state of Canada without needing to share a laugh and take a selfie after. Don't get me wrong, I like selfies, but not with him.
The results of the first ballot. Candidates, none of them have reached a 60% threshold. The results of the second ballot. Perry Bellegarde, 328.
This gap will be closed. Better housing, better education, better health care, and yes, lands and resources coming back to First Nations people, because we know it's assumed Crown sovereignty.
We thought the President of the United States might be involved in obstruction of justice and might be doing that to cover up some sort of inappropriate relationship with the Russians. I mean, it was a head-spinning moment.
That is former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe earlier tonight on CNN, describing the circumstances surrounding the launching of an investigation into the President of the United States as a threat to national security. This is after Donald Trump denounced fresh reports he may have obstructed justice. The fact that this is just another day for Washington is one of the strange and curious things about this time in history. Over the course of about 2 years now, a steady drip of leaks, media reports, and indictments has really become an ocean of information. Add to that the daily swirl of spin, and it's really easy to lose the big picture. So Keith Boak has pulled together what we know about the Russia investigation in the order it happened.
The Kensington Wine Rooms in London's Mayfair has a small and accidental part in the story of Donald Trump's presidency. It was here that George Papadopoulos, a young foreign policy advisor to Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, met for drinks with the Australian High Commissioner Alexander Downer. In a rambling conversation, his tongue loosened by alcohol, Papadopoulos casually tells Downer something stunning: that Russia has damaging information on presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and plans to release it in the final stage of the election campaign.
And this is the first indication that anybody connected with the campaign has knowledge.
Has knowledge of emails that the Russians may have gathered.
Michael Isikoff is co-author of Russian Roulette, a book that brings some order and insight to the many twisted threads of what we call the Russia investigation. Papadopoulos has a minor but crucial role in that story.
He's important because it was the information about Papadopoulos that did trigger the FBI investigation.
That doesn't happen until months later, but it's an important clue about whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia.
So I think when people talk about collusion, sort of colloquially, what we as lawyers would usually call that is conspiracy.
Barrett Berger is a former federal prosecutor who now directs the Center for Advancement of Public Integrity at Columbia Law School.
Under the federal law, a conspiracy is just an agreement between two people to do something illegal. So it doesn't have to be something that's in writing. It doesn't have to be something where both parties are making money out of this agreement. It's just the agreement itself.
A meeting here at Trump Tower and whether it constitutes collusion is one of the central elements in the Russia story. That day, senior members of the Trump campaign, Donald Trump Jr., his brother-in-law Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort, met with Russian emissaries, including Kremlin-connected lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya. Trump Jr.'s emails before the meeting show he hoped to get dirt on Hillary Clinton from the Russians. He's told by his contact that Veselnitskaya is offering official documents about Clinton that are high-level and sensitive information that is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Donald Jr. replies, "If it's what you say, I love it." The meeting is kept secret for more than a year, but when news of it breaks, the first explanation from President Trump and his son is untruthful. Eventually, both the Russians and the Trump campaign say the meeting was a bust that led nowhere. But at the very least, it's strange that it happened at all.
The first big deal about it is that they took the meeting in the first place, given the email trail that clearly said this was about getting damaging information from Kremlin files that could be used by the Trump campaign, and that it was part of a Russian government effort to help elect Donald Trump.
At about this time, ex-British spy Christopher Steele enters the story. He's contracted by the Clinton campaign to look for dirt on Trump. His report becomes known as the Steele dossier, and when it falls into the hands of reporters, they find it red hot.
Do you remember your first impressions?
Wow, if this is true, this is huge. But, you know, my first reading of it was as a journalist. What could I corroborate?
The Steele dossier is a series of memos based on raw intelligence. Its main point is that Russia has for years been cultivating Trump as an asset and has compiled compromising information on him. Steele seems to have quickly found some of what U.S. intelligence discovered only later.
You have this document that makes all sorts of interesting allegations. In a way, it would be foolish not to try to chase down some of those allegations to try to figure out if they are true or not true, because if many of them are true, they're very significant.
Some elements in broad strokes do seem to have panned out. Certainly the fact that Trump was trying to do business in Russia over multiple years, and that was continuing, and that, you know, has emerged as, you know, a very central part of the story.
Trump's ongoing efforts to build a Trump Tower in Moscow contradict his public statements.
I have nothing to do with Russia, folks, okay? I'll give you a written statement, nothing to do. But they tie me into Russia.
He denied it even as his lawyer Michael Cohen was representing him in talks with Russia about the development. Cohen has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for tax evasion, fraud, and for lying to Congress about the Trump Tower deal. Trump campaign members have already had numerous contacts with Russians before their national convention in Cleveland, including Trump's future national security advisor Michael Flynn. Michael Isikoff asks Flynn about a speech at a Moscow gathering organized by Russian state television, and Flynn gets prickly.
Were you paid for that event?
You'd have to ask the folks that went over there to
well, I'm asking you. You'd know if you were paid.
Yeah, I mean, I went over there as a speaking event. It was a speaking event.
And
what difference does that make? Though?
Well,
I mean, somebody go, oh, he's paid by the Russians.
Well, Donald Trump has made a lot of the fact that Hillary Clinton has taken money from Wall Street.
Yeah, I didn't take any money from Russia, if that's what you're asking me.
Well, then who paid you?
My Speakers Bureau. Ask them.
Russian state television paid Flynn more than $45,000 for his speech.
And I thought it was a great opportunity.
And we will make America great again.
By the time of the convention, Trump's team has already rewritten the party's foreign policy platform to make it more sympathetic to Russia in its conflict with Ukraine. The day after Republicans wrap up, the web-based publisher of other people's secrets, WikiLeaks, strikes.
The Democrats are dealing with a brand new little email mess.
Is Russia meddling with the U.S. presidential election?
At their nominating convention in Philadelphia, Democrats are outwardly celebrating. But behind the scenes, they are reeling from the emails that reveal embarrassing and damaging private information about the candidate, Clinton, and how the officially neutral DNC had secretly backed her nomination over populist Senator Bernie Sanders.
And if it is Russia...
Bizarrely, later that week, Clinton's opponent weighed in from his golf club in Florida, encouraging Russia to hack and steal even more information from Clinton.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
The WikiLeaks email dump and Trump's strange appeal to Russia prompt the Australian government to finally contact the FBI about that meeting at the Kensington wine rooms with George Papadopoulos. Those things, together with what they already know of others in Trump's circle, persuade the FBI to open an investigation into the Trump campaign's ties with Russia.
They had these strands. They knew about Manafort for some time.
That's Paul Manafort, formerly a political fixer for ousted Ukrainian president and Russian ally Viktor Yanukovych. Manafort was also millions of dollars in debt to a Russian oligarch and friend of Vladimir Putin, Oleg Deripaska.
They knew about Carter Page for some time. He was on their radar screen.
Carter Page, part of Trump's campaign foreign policy team, also with connections to Russia through the oil and gas industry. U.S. intelligence suspected Russia was cultivating Page and had been watching him since at least 2014. The FBI investigation into the Trump campaign is fully underway before Election Day, but it's kept secret. Few in the FBI expect Trump will soon become president.
The President of the United States!
One of the most curious parts of the Trump-Russia story is the behavior of Trump as president. He casts doubt on U.S. intelligence conclusions that Russia interfered with the election.
Wow, what a move by President Trump.
And it's a grotesque abuse of power by the President of the United States.
In May 2017, he fires James Comey, the director of the FBI, and the next day welcomes Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak into the Oval Office. He brags to them that he's got rid of Comey. He was crazy, a real nutjob, Trump said, according to the White House notes on the meeting. I faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off. After that, the FBI reportedly broadened its counterintelligence investigation to include the president himself to see whether he was secretly or unwittingly acting on behalf of Russia. And last year in Helsinki, after a 2-hour private meeting with Vladimir Putin and no aides or advisors, Trump refused to endorse the conclusion of U.S. intelligence that Russia had meddled in the 2016 election. Why? Because Putin denied it.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
President Putin,
The next day, he tried to walk that back.
the sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative.
On Twitter, Trump has repeatedly called the Russia investigation a witch hunt. Those words appear in more than 150 tweets and still counting.
Isn't he behaving like a guilty person?
In that case, yes, I think that's exactly how the president is acting. I mean, his tactics of, really repeatedly criticizing both the investigation itself and, the people involved in it specifically are, sort of textbook of what, a defendant does if you can't challenge the facts. So to that extent, yes, I think that, strikes me as something that a guilty person would do.
Why? I mean, the most logical explanation is that the Russians have something on Trump. And my only hesitation about endorsing that is that nothing about Donald Trump's presidency is logical.
Whatever the relationship between the Trump campaign and Russia, we know this. The president, his son, his campaign manager, his longtime friend and lawyer, and his former national security advisor, among others, have all been untruthful when asked about the campaign's contacts with Russia. And at least some of them have gone to jail for that. Others await sentencing. More indictments may be coming. At the Kensington Wine Rooms, a plaque reminds patrons they're not just out for an evening. They're wining and dining on the edge of history. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Washington.
Ahead tonight on The National, cashing in on something else. On the search for that perfect selfie, businesses are building interactive exhibits to luring customers. Diane Buckner explores whether it's a trend that's here to stay.
And a little later in tonight's moment, a happy reunion for a Toronto musician thanks to the help of perfect strangers.
I got the message, and I'm going to the TTC, and I'm thinking, what if it's some of myself? But it might not be all of it, or maybe it's something else. And I was excited and also kind of fearful.
The Mitchell magic is the way one critic has been moved to describe Joni Mitchell's particularly warm and endearing charms as a singer and as a composer. Here is some of that magic done with the hands and the heart, a song of her own, The Circle Game.
Yesterday, a child came out to wander.
Joni Mitchell, a very young lady, Saskatchewan-born. And if you've never heard of her before, if you've met her for the first time here, you know you're going to meet her again quite a bit during your lifetime. You're just starting out, sort of, aren't you?
Actually, I've been singing professionally now for 2 years, but I consider that I've only started within the last year because I've only felt that I've begun to have my own way to go, my own songs and my own guitar style, and I'm starting to get my own vocal styling now.
How do you determine when you've sort of arrived and are what you want to be in this game, if you like?
Well, I think that you have to feel it inside, but you do need encouragement, and I've just been becoming more and more successful, and it's sort of a law of averages. It depends on you don't bomb anymore. That's what it is.
Did you ever bomb? I can't believe that.
Oh, I don't know. I think bombing is a thing that is felt in your head sometimes. I've done performances where I didn't particularly excite anyone. I think they said, well, that's nice, you know. Whereas I think that now sometimes that I can excite people.
Your songs have an interesting quality about them. They're very, for want of a better word, I think one just has to say poetic. Because they have a kind of eternity about them. They're not just about love and loss and the things that we normally associate with this kind of singing.
Well, I'm very Canadian. You know that I live in the States now. Did you
No.
tell you that?
You don't.
Well, I married an American and I'm living in Detroit. And I find that I've become more Canadian since I've moved to the States. I think maybe you do that. And the songs that I've been writing within the last year have had more and more of a prairie flavor, if not throughout the song. At least I set the song in Canada. For instance, I've written a song about a carnival in Kenora and things like that, and I'm always looking for Canadian ideas, you know, Canadian places instead of carnival in Detroit, which sounds like a drag anyway. You see all these cars going around in circles or something.
Well, Joni, who are you singing all these songs to? The sort of coffee house group, do they already know the message, or is there a message that you're trying to give them, or anybody?
The general message of my songs, I guess, is just happiness. Most of them have happy endings, and I don't write protesty things. If they protest at all, it's very subtle, and they're sort of, the message comes out like, don't do this, or try not to be that way, but it's still through happiness, so that it doesn't stand up there and sort of preach at people.
What do you mean by happiness, Joni?
Well, as a matter of fact, while I was here, or while I was in Toronto the last time, I got a bad review.
I'm running for president because we need to make policy decisions based on science, not politics.
Bernie Sanders' campaign for president is getting underway tonight. He's seeking the Democratic nomination for 2020. The 77-year-old ran a close race against Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primaries. He joins a crowded pool. 11 other candidates are already in the running. Payless Shoes says it's closing all of its stores in North America. That includes 248 in Canada. The discount shoe store has been struggling with debt. It's seeking creditor protection in Canada and the United States. If it goes ahead, all stores will be closed by May, but those outside North America will stay open. And streaming giant Netflix is opening up a production hub in Toronto that could mean 1,800 film and television jobs. In 2017, Netflix committed to spending $500 million over 5 years to fund original Canadian-made content, a number the company says it will exceed.
So selfie culture is giving rise to a new type of business. So-called Instagram playgrounds are colorful and creative environments custom designed to make your latest self-portrait stand out on social media. They're popping up in big cities, often just for a month or so, attracting lots of visitors. But as Diane Buckner shows us, a Canadian entrepreneur has made a big investment in hopes that the trend will last.
A Saturday afternoon in Toronto.
This is the Museum of Illusions, a new attraction where people pay $25 for an experience to learn how the eye can play tricks on you and to capture lots of pictures to share on social media.
It's cool, I like it.
It's amazing.
It's freaky, actually.
Look at this. I'm a giant person.
Michaela Rodman owns the museum. The concept originated in Croatia. She bought the Canadian franchise rights. This first location cost her $1 million to build.
Wow, look at that. You see that? And now I appear much larger. I think seeing other successes on some of the pop-ups gave me further motivation. I think the longevity of this is what I really liked, and the fact that it was not just Instagram moments, there was an educational element.
Those other pop-ups that gave her motivation, unlike the museum, they're temporary. An American Instagram playground called Happy Place was in Toronto for 2 months, collecting $40 each from thousands of weekend visitors. Candytopia is a new pop-up in Atlanta. It's moving to Minneapolis next, where people will pay $37 to get in. Even retailers want a piece of the Instagrammable business. This new destination is at the Bay's flagship store. It's called The 7. No charge to visit here. The company says it's intended to attract more customers to the store and will be there just till spring.
The business model is make a destination. Well, if I make a destination in one city, what happens once you've been there once?
This media professor says an Instagram-worthy pop-up creates consumer demand because it's temporary. He's not sure about permanent destinations like the Museum of Illusions.
There's a bubble of this kind of thing. A lot of people are getting into this. I think we'll need to wait and see if the fast-moving internet culture supports a longer-term installation. It's an experiment.
It's one of our grandest illusions in the museum.
But Michaela Rodman is all in. Along with the cost of constructing the museum, she pays a monthly franchise fee. And she's looking to expand to Montreal and Vancouver, saying the illusions will be updated regularly.
What happens if it doesn't work out?
There's always a risk. There's always a risk.
For now, ticket sales are brisk, and they may well stay that way, at least until the next hot experiential trend comes along. Diane Buckner, CBC News, Toronto.
My Instagram feed is very boring. Dominating, enigmatic, genius, just some of the words being used to describe that man. Karl Lagerfeld today, the creative force behind Chanel, died this morning in a Paris hospital, leaving behind an incredible legacy in the fashion world. He was instantly recognizable in his dark suits, white ponytail, and tinted sunglasses. Karl Lagerfeld had been an icon of the fashion industry for over half a century. Born in Germany a few years before World War II, he got his first big break in the 1950s when he landed an apprenticeship in Paris. Lagerfeld quickly found success designing for the fashion house Chloe, but it was in the mid-80s when he achieved rock star status after taking the reins at Chanel. Lagerfeld was given carte blanche and is credited with reinventing the brand.
You think of Coco, you think of Karl Lagerfeld. He truly was amazing, constantly working. I have never seen someone have such a work ethic like him.
Welcome to Toronto.
Lagerfeld came to Canada in 2015 and said this about his creative process.
For me, I'm always the beginner. The next collection is always the first. The sketch I make is always the first.
Which explains why Lagerfeld is being remembered by his peers as a prolific talent. Designer Donatella Versace writing in part, "We will never forget your incredible talent and endless inspiration. We were always learning from you." And from Vogue editor Anna Wintour, his creative genius was breathtaking, and to be his friend was an exceptional gift. Karl was brilliant, he was wicked, he was funny, he was generous beyond measure, and he was deeply kind. Always a little coy about his age, Lagerfeld was believed to be 85.
How'd it look?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. It's a nice primer. The country's been waiting for it.
It took months to settle on a name. Its ad rates are still being tested, and its printing plant needed new equipment to upgrade. Still, Conrad Black's much-anticipated national newspaper is turning the newspaper industry in Canada's largest market upside down.
Post.
National Post.
Why should they be reading the National Post?
Well, because it's a good paper. We've got excellent writers and lots of variety, lots of flair. It'll be a good paper. If it isn't a good paper, people shouldn't read it.
Maybe it's going to be like 6 months.
This is the Post's Nerve Centre, the Toronto newsroom at Southern's headquarters. Now, no one can accuse competitors of being unprepared, judging by the battle cries from newspaper executives and the money being spent to shore up defenses. The Toronto Star's publisher wrote an internal memo to staff which reads, "Make no mistake, this paper is directed at us and our domination of the Toronto market." The Globe's publisher made a speech to his staff saying, "We're going to kick we're going to do well against the Post."
The Post starts its run today. Some say that Conrad Black is the best friend that journalism and those who practice the craft have. He's buying newspapers, creating employment and competition for the best talent that's out there. Others, though, see him in a different light. They say that his is a corporate philosophy obsessed with profits before anything else.
Well, the question I want to ask at the outset today...
James Winter is a University of Windsor professor of communication studies. He's the co-author of the Big Black Book, The Essential Views of Conrad and Barbara Emile Black. Winter maintains more newspapers don't necessarily mean more editorial diversity.
Even though he's argued that he's adding diversity to the left-wing so-called press, in reality, he's diminishing diversity because so much of what's in his newspapers is the same. He relies for international news on his Chicago paper and his Daily Telegraph in London, and around this country it's coming from the Hollinger/Southam chain. And the columnists are the same old people, Andrew Coyne and Lauren Gunter and all these right-wing voices.
Former Saturday Night Magazine chief Ken White is the National Post's editor-in-chief.
I don't see how any thinking person could expect that the advent of a new newspaper, a new voice, a new dimension to the conversation journalistically in Toronto could in any way choke opinion. It enhances opinion. I think that the advent of the National Post means Canadian public life is far better off.
For Toronto busker Jeff Burke, his bassoon is simply part of who he is. The pair have been together for more than 3 decades. So when he lost the instrument last month, his friends turned to the public for help. The hope was to raise enough money to replace it. Well, today they exceeded their goal, but also got some unexpected news. A TTC employee saw Jeff's story, connected the dots, and the bassoon is back. That's our moment.
Out comes this man holding my bassoon case. And it was, oh my goodness, I haven't felt happy like it was just overwhelmingly incredible because I'd given up hope that I would see it again. Just unbelievable. And I have my bassoon. As a musician, my instruments are a part of me. The bassoon, my dad helped me buy 32 years ago. And I've had this incredible outpouring of feedback on how my music has touched people over the decades. I am so happy to be able to play for everybody again.
So Jeff was really in a funk. Like, he was very sad to be separated from the bassoon, and that joy you saw there from the reunion is real. He felt a bit lost without it, and he says he now feels more like himself again.
And to speak to that joy, the TTC employee said that he doesn't normally see people look that excited unless they're being reunited with their phones.
Yes.
So it's kind of a big deal.
I can relate.
So he was at Ossington subway station, went to the washroom, left the big heavy case. The bassoon comes in, figuring no one would steal it. Someone did. My guess is in Toronto, whoever took it realized there wasn't much of a resale value for a stolen bassoon, returned it, and it was in lost and found. The lesson of which is check lost and found, even if it's not a bassoon. Just check it, see if the thing you lost is there. That's our lesson for tonight. February 19th. That is the National. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.